Top 3 bands Frank Zappa hated. Frank Zappa was an American composer, musician, and film director. In a career spanning more than 30 years, Zappa established himself as a prolific and highly distinctive composer, electric guitar player and band leader. He is unquestionably one of the most respected icons in rock music history. A true visionary, whether leading the Mothers of Invention or performing solo, his artistic contributions are filled with remarkable moments, solidifying his status as a modernist innovator. One of the great polymaths of the rock era who, arguably, possessed a broader range of skills and interests than any of his peers, he was an instinctive postmodernist who demolished the barriers and hierarchies separating high and low culture. He earned a reputation during his relatively short life as one of the most complex and iconoclastic rock musicians of the 20th century. In 1965, Frank Zappa joined the Soul Giants, who soon changed their name to the Mothers of Invention. Their debut album, Freak Out, launched them as the Mothers of Invention. He also directed films, designed album covers and spoke about social issues. Although his unconventional aspect often overshadowed his brilliance, Zappa is highly respected as a musical pioneer. He is considered by some critics to be a musical genius and avant-garde. Zappa was a snarky satirist that used his music to ridicule and criticize both conservative ideals and hippie counterculture that opposed them. He spent a lot of time pointing out the hypocrisy of modern society in many of his songs and in a lot of his interviews. Here are 3 bands he hated the most. The Beatles. Did Frank Zappa think the Beatles were overrated? Although the Beatles contributed enormously to the music industry and their talent is mind-blowing in terms of songwriting, there is a very apparent and evident chasm between their genius and Zappa's genius. Frank thought the phenomenon of the Beatles was overblown and disgusting. I just thought they were ridiculous. What was so disgusting was the way they were consumed and merchandised. Everybody else thought the Beatles were God. I think that was not correct. They were just a good commercial group. I preferred the Monkees. He thought hippies were phonies. Becoming a hippie in the late 60s was very trendy. The genuine hippies that were around during the Summer of Love were probably genuinely fed up with the societal norms of the day and elected to drop out with the notion of creating a better society. I didn't hate them. I actually liked 2 or 3 of their songs. I just thought they were ridiculous. What was so disgusting was the way they were consumed and merchandised. No music has succeeded in America unless it was accompanied by something to wear, something to dance or a hairdo. A phenomenon is not going to occur unless you can dress up to it. The Velvet Underground. While the Velvet Underground was praised by critics for being avant-garde and experimental, Zappa didn't share the sentiment. In the mid-60s, Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention opened for the Velvet Underground, and it's safe to say there was no love lost between the 2 bands. According to legend, before the Velvet Underground took the stage, Zappa insulted them, allegedly saying something like, "These guys really stink." However, the Mothers drummer, Jimmy Carl Black, later mentioned he didn't remember Zappa publicly insulting them but confirmed that Zappa did dislike the group, possibly because of their drug use. In response, Lou Reed apparently announced, "Frank Zappa is the most untalented musician I've ever heard." Later adding, "He can't play rock and roll because he's a loser." To which Velvet Underground guitarist Sterling Morrison added, "If you told Frank Zappa to eat in public, he would do it if it sold records. I would do it if I liked to." Led Zeppelin. Frank Zappa was the ultimate rebel, while Led Zeppelin embodied the pinnacle of big rock stardom and over-the-top show business spectacle. It's unlikely that the 2 ever crossed paths, and if they had, it probably wouldn't have gone well. Zappa frequently mocked the band, particularly targeting lead singer Robert Plant. What makes Zappa so fascinating isn't just his admiration for certain musicians, but his outspoken criticism of those widely celebrated as legends. While Led Zeppelin is renowned for their extraordinary musical talent, Zappa had plenty of negative things to say about them. Zappa's harsh views on Led Zeppelin came from his tendency to challenge mainstream norms and critique big rock bands. Notably, he repeatedly referenced the band's infamous Mud Shark incident during the Mothers of Invention's New York City performances, which were later featured on the Fillmore East, June 1971 album. He also poked fun at Robert Plant with the names Robert Plant It and Robert Planet in the earlier album 200 Motels.